Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Specifically, the first episode, Welcome to the Hellmouth.
I'm so excited to talk about this with you because you have been trying to get me to watch Buffy for years. And this was my first time watching it.
Yay, you guys helped me con Megan into watching it finally.
I know, you guys voted for this. You DM'd us that you wanted us to cover this, so I'm really excited that we're doing it. And I really liked the show.
Oh, thank goodness.
I know you were nervous. And I appreciated your preface because, guys, Jenny prefaced it for me, especially when it comes to, like, the vampire. It's not even CGI, is it? It's just the vampire makeup that they do is, like, very intense and makes it look like more of the older, like, monster-y movies, you know? It's less Vampire Diaries and Twilight, more just, like, old monster movie vibe, you know?
They're not hot vampires.
No.
When they're vampires.
Right. And so it was good to know that going in. But other than that, I thought it was great. It was giving very Law and Order.
Okay.
Like Law and Order meets Clueless. Because at the beginning, and we'll get into this, they like show you what happens and then you like see the characters try to figure it out, you know? But it was in high school and it was like very like cute, clicky high school, which we love. So it was great. Those are two of my favorite things.
Okay, I'm so happy because I was so nervous that you wouldn't like it. This is one of those shows that like you start watching it, you're like, this is really good, but then it just continues to get better and better and better, and you love it more. And I feel like it's hard to say in like season 6 or 7 of a TV show that you still like it and think it's just as exciting to watch. But that's how I feel about this one. And so I did know that it might be a slow burn for you, and I was worried.
Just a quick reminder, if you guys are enjoying our Halloween episodes, leave us a quick review wherever you're listening.
And thanks for leaving your reviews already. We really appreciate them, and we love to read them. When we get a review on Apple Podcasts from you guys, we share them with each other immediately, and it makes our day.
Okay, so the logline for this show is, a young woman destined to slay vampires, demons, and other infernal creatures deals with her life fighting evil with the help of her friends. This was a cool part of this that I didn't realize, that there's like, maybe this is so obvious and stupid if you guys are Buffy fans, but like the lore of like, there's one Slayer per generation and that's Buffy. So it's like her destiny to do this and she doesn't get to quit. Like that element of the story I thought was really cool and I didn't think about before.
Yeah, I really like that too. I think a lot of the different approaches that they made, like how there's a watcher and all of that kind of stuff, it really felt new and different at the time, I'm sure. And it holds up. Like, just the plot is good, the dialogue is good. I love it all.
Yeah.
I guess I should preface for those who don't know, I'm a Buffy fan, but I haven't finished the show yet. I'm actually currently in the process of watching it. So when I was in high school, one of my friends was really into Buffy, so I got into Buffy. And I got to season 4 and I quit. And I don't remember why I quit. I was like in college at the time, and I think I just like fell off of it, like you fall off of anything. And then I think it was last October that I decided to start watching it again, or maybe it was 2 Octobers ago. And so I've been like chipping away at this show ever since then.
It has a bunch of seasons, doesn't it?
It does. And I don't watch it super consistently all the time. Like I'll go through phases where I'm watching it every single night with Robert, and then we go through phases where we're like watching a different show, especially if like The Bear comes out or something like that. But yeah, it's been like a big part of my regular routine for the past couple of years, and it's really fun to revisit the first episode again and revisit it with someone who hasn't seen it before.
And there's also a Buffy movie, right?
Yeah, so maybe we should get into it. So let's start from the top. This show is often listed as one of the greatest TV series of all time, which I can definitely see why.
High praise.
That's high praise. Do you think you'll keep going?
I want to.
Okay.
Because just watching the first episode, it did not, like you said, it holds up. Like it didn't feel cheesy, which is crazy for a high school vampire show. Like it felt less cheesy than rewatching The Vampire Diaries, which is one of my favorites of all time. Okay.
Agree.
So I'm not anti-cheese, but this did not have that. It was a really good show.
Okay, this makes me feel good. The show ran from 1997 to 2003, and it was created by Joss Whedon, who you might know him. He's done Firefly, Dollhouse, The Avengers, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. He co-wrote Toy Story, Justice League, and The Cabin in the Woods.
Wow.
So he's done a lot of big name things. He said that he wanted to subvert the Hollywood formula of the little blonde girl who goes into a dark alley and gets killed in every horror movie. And he wanted to create someone who was a hero. And he said, the very first mission statement of the show was the joy of female power. Having it, using it, sharing it. Which I thought was cool.
I love this. This is, for every one of the movies that we cover that we're like, interesting, was directed by a man. This is who I want to be behind the project, you know?
Okay, just wait, because I have some more to unload on you soon that it might change your mind.
Oh, no.
Nar.
Nar. Okay.
But for now, yes, like this is all very good. We love to see it. And at the beginning, he described the show as my so-called life meets the X-Files.
The X-Files, I could totally see that.
When you said Law and Order, that's the same vibe to me as X-Files, so.
Definitely.
But let's get into what you asked about, the Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie. So the show is based on the 1992 film of the same name, and that was also created by Joss Whedon. But they are completely separate and unrelated.
Okay.
So I told you about what his idea was for this show / the concept in general.
Mm-hmm.
For the movie, apparently they removed a lot of his jokes and any darker elements, and he just wasn't really happy with the direction that the movie took. And he said, I had written this scary film about an empowered woman, and they turned it into a broad comedy. It was crushing.
Okay.
To be fair, I love the movie. That is Clueless. Like, if you want to watch Clueless meets vampires, it's that movie. And it's so cringe and cheesy, but like funny at the same time. And I highly recommend. But yeah, so he didn't like how this turned out. And then he wrote the pilot for the TV series as a sequel to his original movie script, the one that they didn't change. Which is why in the pilot, they make references to events that didn't happen, like Buffy burning down her school gym.
I see. Okay, this also lends a lot of credence, I think, to something that we've heard, that movies are very much a director's medium, whereas shows are much more the writer's medium. So it makes sense that he, not being satisfied with what happened in the movie because the script got changed and the story got changed so much, then wanted to do a show where he has a little bit more creative control. And that sounds like that's what happened. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me the bad news.
Oh.
We're not there yet?
We're not there yet.
Okay. Never mind.
I thought this was really funny. Joss Whedon had major beef with Donald Sutherland, who played Buffy's watcher Merrick in the movie. Joss Whedon said that Sutherland was entitled and difficult to work with and improvised too many of his lines in a way that made the dialogue disjointed. I've seen the movie. I don't think I agree, but it's like an artist who like doesn't want his craft to be changed.
This is like what Shonda Rhimes says. I think she's made a few comments about like, the writing is my job. The acting is your job. You don't need to change the words. Like, I did that part, you do your part,
That's also what Amy Sherman Palladino said in Gilmore
and Aaron
Girls.
Sorkin. So I think a lot of the more well-known writers, especially maybe just all of them, I don't know. I think that's pretty common.
I have such mixed feelings about that because I do think it's the actor's job to make things sound more natural and like still get at the essence of what needs to be said, but maybe say it in a different way. At the same time, you and I have both written scripts, and you know that every word is so calculated. So, I don't know. I see both sides.
Agreed.
So, in 1999, Whedon's original movie script was turned into a comic called The Origin. So, if you guys are interested in knowing what the original movie and backstory would have been, you can read the comic. And Whedon said, the Origin comic, though I have issues with it, can pretty much be accepted as canonical. They did a cool job of combining the movie script with the series. That was nice. And using the series Merrick and not a certain other thespian who shall remain hated.
The shade. Who shall remain hated.
Can you believe it?
Yikes.
Okay, so here's the bad news. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, Joss Whedon used to be considered this feminist icon for Buffy, as we talked about, and as you can tell by just what he was thinking when he created the show. But he's since been accused of workplace harassment and misogyny. Michelle Trachtenberg, who's in later episodes of Buffy, said that his behavior toward her as a teenager was very not appropriate. And Charisma Carpenter, who plays Cordelia, said that Buffy was a toxic environment because of him. I think the stars of the Justice League, like Jason Momoa and some other people, came out against Joss Whedon, and then Charisma Carpenter showed support, and then all of the other cast supported Charisma as well. And yeah, it just sounds like he was icky, and she thinks that she was released from the show for being pregnant.
Wow.
I know.
A classic Hollywood male trajectory, unfortunately.
He could have had it all.
Damn, that's disappointing.
I know.
Man, I just fell right into that too. I was like, he is an icon.
He's awesome. Well, everybody thought so.
Yeah.
And like when you watch the show, the dialogue and like the themes that they cover in every episode are very progressive for the time, and yeah, very like real and genuine. And so it is a huge bummer to hear this. And Charisma Carpenter said that he was casually cruel, I think. Wait, am I stealing that from Taylor Swift? Something about
both
him being cruel.
Both can be true. Oh, well, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on a lighter note, should we talk about the cast that we love?
Yes, please.
Let's start with Sarah Michelle Gellar, who plays Buffy.
She's from I Know What You Did Last Summer, Scream 2, Cruel Intentions, Scooby-Doo, and Ringer. She's been acting since she was 6, and she was raised by a single mom. And she said they didn't have a lot of money, and she was bullied in school for it, which I thought was sad.
It is sad.
She was also a competitive figure skater and has a black belt in Taekwondo.
Whoa.
And I was like, did she get the black belt in Taekwondo for Buffy? I wouldn't be surprised.
Like as training, but that takes years, doesn't it?
I have no idea. And she really doesn't do a lot of her own stunts, at least from what I can tell rewatching it on a really big screen. I like often see her body change completely and her turn into a different person, which is always fun. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. What's also interesting is she originally auditioned for Cordelia.
Interesting.
And they made her come back and audition for Buffy.
She's perfect for Buffy, though.
I agree. Apparently, Katie Holmes from Dawson's Creek and Selma Blair from Legally Blonde were in the running for the role of Buffy. And Natasha Lyonne from Orange is the New Black and Russian Doll was actually offered the role, but declined it because she didn't want to commit to the series at age 16.
Interesting. I can totally see Katie Holmes or Selma Blair.
Isn't Natasha Lyonne, isn't she in like a 90s or 2000s movie that's called something like Because I'm a Cheerleader or something like that?
I don't know.
You guys might know what I'm talking about, but I wonder if that's kind of why she was picked for this role.
Yeah, it could be.
Back to Sarah Michelle Gellar, though. She's married to Freddie Prinze Jr. They are celebrity couple goals, at least from the outside. They're so cute. I always see her posts on Instagram, and I just think they're so cute together. They met on the set of I Know What You Did Last Summer in 1997. They started dating in 2000 and were married in 2002. And my favorite thing is that they played Fred and Daphne in the live-action Scooby-Doo.
That's what I know both of them from, actually.
Really? Scooby-Doo?
I know they're very famous for other things, but that's what I recognize them from, and I love that it's the two of them that they're together. It's so cute.
I actually think that's what I originally knew them from, too.
Yeah. And they've been together for so long. That does not happen a lot, so I love when we get to talk about long-lasting celebrity couples. That's fun.
Me too. Back to what we were talking about earlier, she supported Charisma Carpenter when she came out about Joss Whedon's cruelty and said, "While I am proud to have my name associated with Buffy Summers, I don't want to be forever associated with the name Joss Whedon." And last year, she was also quoted as saying, "I'll never tell my full story because I don't get anything out of it. I've said all I'm going to say because nobody wins. Everybody loses."
Interesting. Interesting quote.
I know I don't have the full context on that. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, actually.
Yeah, there is. But she's allowed to share whatever she wants about her experience, so fair enough.
Freddie Prinze Jr. said, "She had to deal with a lot of bullshit on that show for all 7 years it was on. The stuff they pressed upon her without any credit or real salary, while she was often the only one doing 15-hour days, yet she was still able to get the message of that character out every single week and do it with pride and do it professionally."
Aw, I love that.
I hate that she had a hard experience, but love a supportive husband.
Totally. Okay, should we talk about Allison Hannigan, who plays Willow?
Yes, I love her.
I had to pause it when she came on the screen because I was like, oh my God, it's Lily from How I Met Your Mother.
Really?
Yes. And I'm not even a huge How I Met Your Mother fan. Brian is, so I've seen a lot of the show just like as it's been on, and she looks identical in this show, don't you think?
I know. She hadn't aged at all in between these two.
No, her face, her hair, just identical. So cute.
I know. She's one of my favorites. Isn't it the best when you're watching something and you don't know who's going to be in it, and then you get shocked when you see someone you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, she's in How I Met Your Mother, and she's also from American Pie and a bunch of other things. One thing that I've seen a lot on social media lately is that she's a big Swiftie.
Love our girl.
Yeah, I know. I think she had like a Swift Miss Christmas sweater on or something. Like, I need to dig back into her Instagram and find all of the Taylor Swift references because it's very cute. She's from Atlanta originally, which we love to hear, and she started acting in commercials when she was 4. And I thought this was kind of crazy. As a teenager, she babysat for Bob Saget's kids.
Wow.
And what's crazier is he was later the narrator for How I Met Your Mother.
Wow. That's fun.
I know.
That must have been really fun for her.
I know. She's like, yeah, I was your kid's babysitter.
Yeah.
She was actually the last to be cast in Buffy. And in the unaired Buffy pilot, Willow was played by someone named Riff Reagan.
Okay. Interesting. I always think that's interesting when they do swaps after the pilot.
Like in Gilmore Girls.
Yeah.
With Suki.
Yeah. But I'm glad because she's so good in the show. She's so cute.
I know. She crushed it. She was recently on Dancing with the Stars and got 5th place. This was in 2023, I think.
Wow. Oh, I gotta go back and watch some of those clips. I love watching clips from Dancing with the Stars.
Do you ever watch the actual thing or just the clips?
I've watched, I think, 2 of the seasons through. Like, if someone's on it that I'm really interested in. Like, I wish I was watching this season because Joey from The Bachelor is on, and I heard he's crushing it.
I thought you were going to say because Anna Delvey was on it.
Also that. I was very intrigued by this season. I just haven't had time to watch it, but either way, I like watching the clips.
I've actually never seen it. I think I've only seen an episode here or there, and I always lost interest really quickly. I don't know why. I feel like I would like it now. It would be like some good brain candy after work.
Yeah, you have to know the people, or else I feel like it's not that interesting.
Yeah, that's fair. This is one of my favorite facts about Allison Hannigan that I only discovered recently. I don't know how I didn't know this, but she's married to Alexis Denisof, who she met on the set of Buffy. He played a watcher named Wesley Wyndham Price, and he's also a much bigger part in the show Angel, which is a spinoff of Buffy.
Cool.
And they have 2 daughters together, and they've been together for like a really, really long time, just like Sarah Michelle Gellar and Freddie Prinze Jr. And random fun fact, their home was used as a set for This Is Us.
Slay.
Slay, indeed.
That's really cool. Okay, let's talk about Nicholas Brendan, who plays Xander.
What did you think about Xander?
Trying to remember who he was. Is he the cute boy?
Oh, he's the friend. He's the friend. The one on the skateboard at the beginning. It has a crush on Buffy.
Oh, yeah. Cute.
You're like, forgettable, but...
Obviously, I guess. I feel like I don't remember hearing his name one time in this episode.
I don't know if they really called him out by name, to be honest. He is such a great character, though. I really love his character.
Yeah, he was really cute. I feel like he was the main reason why I wanted to keep watching. Because I was like, this did not pay off, obviously, because it's the first episode. But I need to see what happens with him.
So he's been in a lot of things, but this and Criminal Minds are kind of his biggest roles, I would say. He has a twin brother named Kelly, and this blew my mind when I found this out last night. Kelly is actually in an episode of Buffy, season 5, which is called The Replacement. And like I said, I'm on season 6, so this episode is very fresh to me.
This is recent news.
I know, and I immediately put down my computer and I said, Robert, did you know Xander has a twin? Anyway, very important to me. I thought this was an interesting story, though. Nicholas Brendan said that he pursued acting to help him with his stutter, which started at age 7 or 8, and made him so scared to talk with strangers that he didn't start dating until he was in his early 20s. He said, "Every day I still have to remind myself to slow down and concentrate. Constant repetition of tongue twisters was like lifting weights for me, but patience and persistence have paid off."
Oh.
I know, and he's done work for the Stuttering Foundation of America, which is great. He then took a turn. He gave up acting after 2 years of trying it out to study medicine, but then that didn't work out. So then he was also a plumber's assistant, veterinary janitor, daycare counselor, waiter, and production assistant.
So many of those words that I would not have put together. Daycare counselor, veterinary janitor, plumber's assistant. But great. I feel like that's got to be pretty common for actors or people who end up acting to have a lot of odd jobs because the schedules are crazy and it's so unpredictable.
Yeah. And I think when he quit acting, he was just like, okay, just gonna do odd jobs for a while. What's interesting is that at age 25, he got fired from a job after buying the wrong kind of Pop-Tarts for coworkers. That's so random and specific. And his boss actually told him, you should go back to acting.
Oh, this was a non-acting job. So I was like, wow, people in Hollywood are like so high maintenance. not even an acting job. Wow.
This was when he was in his break from acting.
Wow.
And then he came across the Buffy script, was really interested in it, especially in Xander, because I want to say that he said he could recognize that Xander was like a self-insert character for Joss Whedon, which kind of makes sense to me.
Yep.
And then he signed with a manager and was cast as Xander pretty soon. So good for him.
Good for him. That's a very cool story.
Yeah. He still regularly attends comic and sci-fi conventions and has also been credited as a writer for several Buffy comics for helping develop Xander's character in the comics.
Cool.
This is sad, but he's struggled with substance misuse and depression for over a decade, and he has many records of arrest and assault, and the most recent one is in 2021, so pretty recently. And I hate to hear that.
Yeah.
This is not sad, though. Ryan Reynolds and Danny Strong auditioned for Xander. The Ryan Reynolds is the mind-blowing one.
I could totally see that.
Me too. I could totally see him being the kind of like the quirky friend character.
Quirky friend, hot friend. That you're like, is this going to be a love interest or when is this going to become a thing? That was my impression from the first episode.
Okay, interesting. Danny Strong was a name that I mentioned because he later came back as a recurring character, Jonathan, and people who've watched the show know who he is, but he originally auditioned for Xander.
Okay, now let's talk about Anthony Stewart Head, who plays Rupert.
And not only does he play Rupert Giles in Buffy, but he also plays Rupert in Ted Lasso.
I totally did not even put that together. Wow.
For those of you who haven't seen Ted Lasso in a while, he's the ex-husband of
Rebecca,
yeah. He had a music career before Buffy, and he was also well known for a series of famous Nescafe commercials, which is kind of random. He's been married to Sarah Fisher since 1984, and their two daughters, Emily and Daisy, are both actresses. Emily is from The In-Betweeners, and Daisy was most recently in the Dungeons & Dragons movie, which was my favorite movie of 2023.
Wow. Another long-term relationship from this cast.
I know. Look at all of these
Good
wholesome people. Now we're about to talk about one who's not so wholesome. Sorry to say.
And that's David Boreanaz, who plays Angel.
He's from Bones. Do you recognize him?
Yes, I did. Yes. Okay. I love Bones.
With Emily Deschanel, yes. So he's from Bones. He is also from the spinoff Angel, of course. He apparently was spotted on the sidewalk walking his dog by a talent agent, and the talent agent called the casting director immediately and said that he'd found Angel.
These type of stories are what completely derailed my childhood, okay? Because this is what I thought would happen to me.
I'm just going to be walking my dog one day.
I genuinely thought that, but like as a child. So like when I was like 6 or 7, I would just be like walking in the mall, humming to myself, like someone is going to tap me on the shoulder and my life is going to change. I know it. And it happens for some people.
Pre-internet, that was how they discovered people, right? I mean, How else would you discover people? The newspaper?
I guess.
So he had a degree in filmmaking already and had been an extra in stuff before he was discovered on the sidewalk, so he already was acting a little bit. He's married to a Playboy model, Jamie Bergman, I think is how you say her name, and he has been married to her since 2001, so another long-term celebrity marriage from this show. They have 2 kids, but this is where it gets not so wholesome. He had an affair on his Playboy model wife while she was pregnant with, allegedly, the same exact woman that Tiger Woods had an affair with, named Rachel Uchitel. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce her name.
Interesting.
But isn't that wild?
I hate it. I hate it because he's so cute and just like endearing to me because I loved him in Bones. So I was so excited to see him in this, and this is sad.
I know.
He comes across so likable, so that's disappointing.
It is disappointing, and he's so cute.
Oh, it's giving so Adam Levine, that story.
Oh, yeah. We don't even have to get into him. But like I said, he's still married to his wife, and he owns a nail polish company with her. It's called Chrome Girl.
Interesting. Okay.
This is also not very good about him. So sorry.
A lot of downers. We got a lot of like wholesome, happy marriages, and then also a lot of bad guys.
What makes me sad is a lot of this I found out yesterday as I was researching this, and I love Buffy, and I was such a fan. And now it's like, ugh, well, maybe you made some really bad choices as an individual that make me question you.
Yeah.
A coworker on the set of Bones sued him in 2010 for sexual harassment, saying that he repeatedly attempted to kiss and fondle her. In March 2011, the woman's attorney requested the lawsuit be dismissed, stating the matter was resolved.
That sucks. Hate to hear it.
Hate to hear it.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about Charisma Carpenter, who plays Cordelia Chase. The names are off the charts. Her name is Charisma Carpenter in real life, and she plays Cordelia Chase.
Destined to be famous.
Destined.
I like the name Charisma a lot, actually.
Mm-hmm. And Cordelia.
Charisma Carpenter is from Charmed, Veronica Mars, The Lying Game, and again, Angel, the Buffy spinoff. She was actually discovered by a commercial agent while waiting tables in LA.
This is actually so validating to hear that this actually happened for so many people.
It just means that we should have been born like a decade earlier.
And
if
in
we
LA,
wanted anything cool.
Ideally.
Yeah. Her first TV role was for an episode of Baywatch, which is a major slay. Not to say that too many times this episode, but this is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so I think it's warranted.
Correct.
She actually originally auditioned for the character of Buffy.
That's funny that she auditioned for Buffy and then Sarah Michelle Gellar auditioned for Cordelia.
I know, a little switcho changeo. I thought this was interesting. She was on the cover and in a 10-page nude pictorial of the June 2004 issue of Playboy magazine. And she said, "I did Playboy for a very specific reason. Not only was it a good financial move, but it was about the place I was at in my life. I had just had my son and I'd gained 50 pounds during pregnancy. I wanted to get back to my old self. I wanted to feel desirable and sexy. So I thought, what if I went full throttle?"
Good for her. I love that rationale.
Yeah. I mean, I don't love the rationale that's like, I got to get back to my old body after giving birth.
Right, which I think what she's saying is not that. I mean, I hear what you're saying because she said, I wanted to get back to my old self. But I think she just means I wanted to get back to my old self, like mentally. Like I wanted
Like
to feel sexy
empowered
again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I just thought it was like a really interesting quote to pull. And I feel like at that time, for someone to do Playboy, they would be judged in such a different way than how they're judged now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, this quote really makes me think about the Pamela Anderson doc.
100%.
And I love that doc that was produced, I believe, by her son, produced and directed by her and her son. Would highly recommend that if you guys haven't watched it. It gave me a totally new perspective, not only just on her, it was so interesting to learn about her life, but hearing her perspective on Playboy and like the empowerment that she experienced, along with, you know, how that affected her career and stuff was just really interesting and cool.
It was. I think we started watching that together.
I think so too.
It was a while ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all for the cast.
Should we get into the show?
Let's do it. Okay, it starts off with the classic. If you've seen Buffy before, you know it. It says, "In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer." Ooh.
Ooh. Gung gung.
What did you say?
I said gung gung, like Law and Order. Sorry. It just makes me think of that so much.
It is Law and Order for high school. So we open on Sunnydale High School at night. There's eerie music playing. And in a dark classroom, a window shatters and a couple crawls into the school through the window. The girl asks, "Do you go to school here?" And the guy says, "I used to." He tells her they should go on top of the gym where they can see the whole town. She says they're going to get in trouble, and he says she can count on it. The two almost kiss, but she gets scared because she heard something. He messes with her and calls out, "Hello," and then says, "There's nobody here." She says, "Are you sure?" And then she whips around and her face gets all scary monster vampire-y, and she has fangs, and she bites his neck and he falls to the ground. And then we get the show credits and the theme song.
When I tell you I was so bought in immediately at the beginning of this scene, actually, because I recognized what was happening. Like, we got the, like, iconic quote, and then we get this, like, sketchy scene, which, again, it's so Law and Order. I was just like, incredible. Now we're going to find out what happens. And I was not expecting it to be her, like the vampire to be the girl. So that was fun.
Even rewatching it, it's been so many years since I rewatched it that I didn't even expect it to be her.
Mm-hmm. We've been fed too many Edward Cullens and Salvatore brothers, you know?
Last year on the podcast, we covered the pilot episode of The Vampire Diaries, and that opening scene really reminds me of this one. Like, I wonder if they took inspiration a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Just the vibes, so I can see why you were bought in. Fun fact about the theme song, it's performed by the band Nerf Herder, which is an interesting name, but Allison Hannigan is actually the one who told Joss Whedon to check out the band. So cool. She's the reason for the iconic theme song that exists for the whole show.
Then we see Buffy, and she's having a nightmare, and we see lots of scary things like skulls and monsters and vampires, and then we see this scary bald vampire, and this comes back throughout the episode, and they have red eyes, and they look right at the camera, and this image scares Buffy awake.
We see that Buffy's room is covered in boxes. Buffy's mom calls to her and tells her she doesn't want to be late for her first day of school. Buffy says under her breath, "No, wouldn't want that."
And then we cut to Sunnydale High School, and Buffy's mom Joyce drops her off and tells her to think positive, and she's sure she'll make friends right away. And then she says, "And honey, try not to get kicked out." And Buffy says, "I promise."
I do love the juxtaposition of, like, Sarah Michelle Gellar, who's cute and blonde and small, and her mom telling her not to get kicked out of school on the first day when she seems like such a goody two-shoes preppy girl.
Me too.
It does make you go, huh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Then a boy skateboards through the crowd of students and he notices Buffy. He can't take his eyes off her and crashes into the stairs. This is Xander, played by Nicholas Brendan, and a girl named Willow, played by Allison Hannigan, comes up to him, and he gets up and asks her to help him with math. She tells him he'll need to check out a book from the library.
As Willow and Xander enter the school, a guy named Jesse comes up to them and starts talking about the new girl. And Xander asks what he knows about her, and he shrugs and says, "New girl."
Buffy is in Principal Flutie's office, and he looks at her record from her previous school in Los Angeles, and he says it's interesting. Then he tears up the paper and tells her she has a clean slate here in Sunnydale, and she's super relieved by this. But then he notices something on the paper, and he starts taping the pieces back together.
This is one of my favorite scenes of the whole episode.
It's so goofy. And she says, "It wasn't that bad." And he says, "You burned down the gym." She admits that she did, and she says, "But that gym was full of vampire asbestos."
When Buffy leaves Mr. Flutie's office, she runs into someone and her bag spills everywhere, and then Xander comes to help her clean up, and he says, "Can I have you? Can I help you?" And they introduce themselves, and Xander is awkward, and then when Buffy leaves for class, he realizes she forgot one thing from her bag, a steak.
In class, a girl named Cordelia shares her textbook with Buffy. After class, she tells her that she can probably find her own copy of the textbook in the library and shows her where it is.
While they walk, Cordelia says, "You're from LA, right? I would kill to live in LA, that many shoes." Buffy laughs, and Cordelia says that Buffy will be okay here, and if she hangs out with her and her friends, she'll be accepted in no time. But then she says she'll have to test her coolness factor first. So she says, "Vamp nail polish," and Buffy guesses over. Cordelia says, "So over. James Spader?" And Buffy says, "He needs to call me." There are a few other questions, and Buffy answers them all to Cordelia's liking, and it seems like the girls really get along.
But then Cordelia sees Willow drinking from a water fountain and says, "Willow, nice dress. Good to know you've seen the softer side of Sears." Willow stammers and says her mom picked it out. Cordelia says, "No wonder you're such a guy magnet." And when Willow leaves, Cordelia tells Buffy if she wants to fit in here, the first rule is to know the losers, because once you can identify them, they're easier to avoid. Buffy awkwardly nods and smiles, but she looks back at Willow. And I have to say, this is the Cordelia that I know from the show.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was such like a whiplash moment to see the first scene where she's like helping her out and she's taking her to the library, because I didn't remember that. And so I was like, wait, were they friends to start with? I didn't know.
It's very Regina George. Like, we'll help you get adjusted. You just got to hang out with the right people. And like, the new person thinks she's being nice and then realizes she's mean. So then right as the girls get to the library, Cordelia invites Buffy to the Bronze that night and says that it's the only club worth going to. And she says it's in a bad part of town and they let anybody in, but it's still the scene. And then the bell rings, and Cordelia says that when they see each other next, Buffy can tell her everything there is to know about her. And then under her breath, Buffy says sarcastically, "Oh, that sounds like fun."
Buffy goes into the library and calls out, but nobody seems to be there. On the counter, she sees a newspaper with a headline circled that says, "Local boys still missing." The librarian, played by Anthony Stewart Head, taps her on the shoulder and asks if he can help her. She says she's looking for some books because she's new. He says, "Miss Summers?" and introduces himself as Mr. Giles. He says he knows what she's after and plops a big, fat book on the counter, and on the cover it says Vampire, spelled P-Y-R instead of P-I-R-E, and she looks concerned and says, "That's not what I'm looking for," and runs out.
In the girls' locker room, two girls are gossiping about how the new girl Buffy got kicked out of her last school, and one of them opens her locker and screams, and it's because the dead body of the guy from the beginning falls out of her locker.
Scary.
Scary.
Buffy finds Willow eating a sandwich on some stairs outside the school, and Willow asks, "Do you want me to move?" Buffy says, "Why don't we start with, 'Hi, I'm Buffy,' and then let's segue directly into me asking you for a favor. It doesn't involve moving, but it does involve you hanging out with me for a while." Willow says, "But aren't you hanging out with Cordelia?" Buffy says, "Can I do both?" And Willow says, "Not legally." Buffy asks if Willow can help her get caught up in her classes, and Willow gets super excited and suggests that they go to the library. Buffy immediately reacts to this and suggests somewhere else, and then Willow says the new librarian is cool and used to be a curator in a British museum. Buffy locks on to the fact that he's a new librarian, so she's starting to figure some things out.
Mm-hmm. Then Xander and Jesse come sit with the girls, and Xander returns her steak and says, "The only thing I can think is that you were building a really tiny fence." And she makes up an excuse that everyone in LA uses stakes instead of pepper spray, which is so dark. And then the boys try to learn more about Buffy and say that she's pretty big news in their one Starbucks town. And then Cordelia comes up and is mean to everyone except for Buffy, and then tells Buffy that gym was canceled because they found an extreme dead guy in the locker. And this is funny because Buffy is immediately so intrigued by this information and starts asking questions, including if he had any marks and how he died. And Cordelia says, "Morbid much?"
Buffy goes to see the body and confirms that he's got bite marks. She bursts into the library and says, "Okay, what's the sitch?" to Mr. Giles. She tells him about the body and says she didn't think there'd be vampires on campus and that she doesn't care. He says, "Then why are you here?" And she says, "To tell you that I don't care," which I don't, and have now told you, so bye. Giles asks if the boy will rise again, and Buffy says she's sure he won't. And then she explains that to make you a vampire, they have to suck your blood, and then you have to suck their blood. She says, it's like a whole big sucking thing. Mostly, they're just going to kill you.
Giles tells her that it wasn't a coincidence, and this boy is just the beginning. So she asks, "Why can't you people leave me alone?" And he says it's because she's the Slayer, and in each generation, a Slayer, one girl in all the world, is born to hunt the... And then she finishes the sentence and says, "The strength and skill to hunt the vampires, to stop the spread of their evil, blah, blah, blah." She says she's been there, done that, and is moving on.
He tells her he thinks Sunnydale is the center of mystical energy, and tells her werewolves, zombies, succubi, and more are all real. She says she's a vampire slayer, and besides, she's retired. She suggests that he kill them, and he says he hasn't the skill because he's a watcher.
And this is where we learn that the Watcher trains the Slayer and prepares her. And Buffy says, "Prepares me for what? For getting kicked out of school? For losing all my friends? For having to spend all my time fighting for my life and never getting to tell anyone because it might endanger them? Go ahead, prepare me." And then she runs out and Giles says, "Damn," and chases out after her. And then Xander steps out from behind a shelf and says, "What?" And he heard this whole thing, which was a twist I was not expecting. I'm not gonna lie.
Me neither, and I had seen it before. In the hallway, Giles catches up to Buffy and tells her the supernatural occurrences are getting worse, and there's a reason why she's here. He says something is going to happen here soon. Buffy says, "Come on, this is Sunnydale. How bad and evil can there be here?"
And then the camera pans to underneath the school, and we're in a creepy candlelit cavern, and people are carrying torches, and a vampire is bowing over a pool of blood, saying, "The sleeper will wake and the world will bleed. Amen." Creepy.
Very creepy. Buffy's mom is feeling very positive about Sunnydale, and especially Buffy's school. Joyce says that she's a good girl and just fell in with the wrong crowd, and that's behind them now. And Buffy says it is, and that from now on, she'll only hang out with the living. I mean, lively people. Then
we see Buffy walk to the Bronze, which is the club, and we see that a man is following her. And so Buffy notices and picks up her pace, and she ends up in this alley, and the man comes after her, but she's not there. And the camera pans up, and we see that she's doing a handstand on this pole, and she's staying perfectly still. And then she swings down and pins him to the ground. And we see his face. And this is the guy played by David Boreanaz. And he says, "Is there a problem, ma'am?" And she says, "There's a problem. Why are you following me?"
He says, "I know what you're thinking, but don't worry. I don't bite." He says he wants the same thing she does, to kill them all. She says what she wants is to be left alone. He says, "You really think that's an option anymore? You're standing at the mouth of hell, and it's about to open." He gives her a jewelry box and tells her she needs to be ready for the harvest. She asks who he is, and he says, "Let's just say I'm a friend." She says, "Yeah, well, maybe I don't want a friend." And he says, "I didn't say I was yours." And when he leaves, she opens the jewelry box to find a large cross necklace. I have to say, his character in this pilot episode is very different than his character in even like the rest of the season or show.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if they just like hadn't figured out who he was yet, but it was interesting to watch again.
So then Buffy goes inside the bronze, and there's a band playing, and she sees Willow at the bar and sits with her and asks if she's there with anyone. And Willow says she was hoping Xander would show up, and Buffy asks if they're going out. And Willow says they used to go out, but Xander stole her Barbie when they were 5. And I love this scene. I thought it was so cute and funny. And then Willow confides that she actually has a hard time talking to boys she likes. And Buffy says the secret is to seize the moment. Why waste time being shy? Because tomorrow you might be dead. And Willow likes this thought, and we can see her like throughout the night employ this. But then Buffy sees Giles upstairs and excuses herself. After Buffy leaves, Willow says to herself, "Seize the moment." She's like talking herself up. It's very cute.
I love this scene too. Allison Hannigan actually uses this scene to describe what her approach is to the character. So in this scene where Willow sadly tells Buffy that her Barbie doll was stolen from her as a child, Buffy asks her if she ever got it back, and Willow's line was to reply, "Most of it." And Allison Hannigan decided on an upbeat and happy delivery of the line, "Most of it." I think she's like, "Most of it," as opposed to a sad, depressed delivery, which I think is what you would normally go for if you saw that line. And Allison figured that Willow would be happy and proud that she got most of it back. That basically defined how she was going to treat the character for the rest of the time that she played that character, and her approach got her the role.
Cool. I love that story. So then Giles says that he'd rather be at home with a book, but this is the perfect breeding ground for vampires, and he also figured that Buffy would show up. And he has to make her understand. And she says, "About the harvest, I know, your friend told me." And Giles is confused and doesn't know what she's talking about. And he isn't sure what this means. And he doesn't know the guy that told Buffy about the harvest. So Buffy says that the guy also said something about the mouth of hell. And she really didn't like him. So she's kind of just like off on this tirade about this guy. And Giles the whole time is like, "He's not my friend. I don't know who he is or why he told you all of this." So then Giles says that perhaps the signs are wrong and no trouble is coming. And it's not as though she's been having the nightmares. And then obviously this affects Buffy because she has been having nightmares.
Very sneaky, Giles. Because I think he knew that she had the nightmares. Jesse asks Cordelia to dance, and she rejects him. And now we see Buffy telling Giles that she never said she wouldn't slay another vampire again. She just won't go out of her way to do it. Giles asks if she'll be ready. And then he says, "Can you tell me if there's a vampire in this building?" And she says, "Maybe." And he says it's something she should know, and he needs her to reach out with her mind and hone her senses. She interrupts and says, "There's one, talking to that girl. Look at his jacket. He's got the sleeves rolled up. And the shirt? Deal with that outfit for a moment." And then I think he says, yeah, that guy's outfit is dated. And Buffy's like, "Yeah, carbon dated." And Giles realizes that she's right. And he goes, "But you didn't hone," which I thought was funny.
And then they realize that the girl that the vampire is talking to is Willow. So Giles asks what she's doing, and Buffy says, "Seizing the moment," because this is the advice that Buffy literally just gave to Willow that is now getting her in trouble. And so Buffy runs downstairs to them, but they've already left and gone backstage.
So Buffy follows them backstage, and it's really dark and maze-like back there, and she breaks off the leg of a chair to make a stake. As she's creeping around back there, she senses that the vampire is on her and grabs him by the neck and hoists him in the air only to realize that it's not the vampire, it's Cordelia.
This made me laugh so hard.
It was so funny. And Cordelia goes, ugh, God, what is your childhood trauma? Which Cordelia has one of my favorite, like when she came on screen, Robert goes, oh, there's Cordy. Because he loves her so much.
That's so funny.
Then her friends come in and she says, excuse me, I have to call everyone that I've ever met right now.
Then we see Jessie start chatting with a girl, and it's the vampire from the opening scene. But she looks normal right now. She doesn't have her scary vampire face. And she says that her name is Darla.
Back under Sunnydale, we see someone rise out of the pool of blood. It's the bald, red-eyed vampire from Buffy's nightmare. The vampire who chanted for him calls him Master.
The Master says that he needs his strength for the harvest, and the vampire says he sent his servants to get him food. The Master says, Luke, bring me something young.
I don't know why, even though I've seen this, but I thought in this scene, he would be like, I need my strength for the harvest, and then he would like eat Luke, the vampire who raised him. I was expecting that, but no, it didn't happen. Willow and the vampire in the dated shirt are walking through the cemetery, and she thinks they're taking a shortcut to get ice cream.
Then we see Buffy outside the bronze looking for Willow, and she runs into Xander. And she tells him that Willow is with a guy, and Xander playfully says, I hope he's not a vampire, because then you might have to slay him. This also made me laugh so hard. And then Buffy says, is there anyone in this town who doesn't know I'm the Slayer? And he realizes that she's serious, and she says if they don't find Willow, there's going to be one more dead body in the morning.
The vampire with the bad shirt pushes Willow into a mausoleum, and Darla is in there, and she says that she brought her own. And we see Jessie stumble into the mausoleum with a neck wound. Darla says, I got hungry on the way. Just as Darla changes into her vampire form and is about to attack Willow, Buffy and Xander show up, and Buffy says, wow, this is nice. A little bare, but a dash of paint, a few throw pillows, call it home. And I think this is like the first time we see Buffy. She always has like a snippy, witty comment like this before she fights anyone.
Mm.
And this is the very first one. So I thought that was cool.
I love, like you said, the juxtaposition earlier of her when they were talking about her getting kicked out of school, but being this like cute little blonde girl. That just that carries through the whole episode, like until now, where I'm like, she's about to get in this fight, and she's just like not scared, making jokes, like it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So, like we said, Buffy continues with these clips and then stakes the bad shirt vampire, easy peasy, like it's no big deal. And then she tells Xander to go with Jessie and Willow, and then she starts fighting Darla. And Darla says, who are you? And Buffy says, don't you know? And then a hand clenches around her neck and hoists her up, and it's Luke, the vampire that raised the Master. And he says, I don't care, and flings her against the wall. And then they start fighting, and he says, you're strong, I'm stronger.
Xander, Willow, and Jessie escape through the graveyard and run into more vampires. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. And then Luke and Buffy continue fighting while he says, and like a plague of boils, the race of man covered the earth. But on the third day of the newest light will come over the harvest, when the blood of men will flow as wine, when the Master will walk among them once more. The world will belong to the old ones. And then he throws her into a crypt, and it's silent for a moment. And then Luke comes jumping into the crypt with her and says, Amen.
And that's the end.
Creepy end.
Yeah, it really made me want to go to the next episode because I was like, man, we didn't really get anywhere yet.
I know. You just got like the bare intro, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so overall, you liked it. You'll keep going?
Overall, I liked it. I want to keep going, yeah.
Amazing. That makes me very happy. And then we'll have something to talk about. Honestly, I kind of want to restart it again, even though I haven't finished it yet.
How many seasons are there?
7.
Okay. You're so close.
I know, but it's like 22 episodes per season. And you do have to be in the mood. And Robert, I need to know if you guys have partners who are like this, or if maybe you are the partner who's like this. I'm someone who could binge everything in one night because I get obsessed with something and I just want to sink onto the couch and like not move for a long time. Robert is a 1 episode a night kind of person. And so we have a hard limit. It's like watch 1 episode and then you're done.
I can't relate to that.
So that's why it takes so long.
I am also a binger. Brian is also a binger though too. So we will like sit through 3 or 4 episodes of something.
If something is really, really good, especially like a new show that's out, and I get Robert, if I can convince him to watch like 2 episodes, maybe even 3 in a night, that is like, I won. So some spin-offs and things have been made for Buffy, so let's just talk about them real quick. There's a ton of official books, there's comics, there's games, there's podcasts. I think there's even like, I don't know if this is a trend anymore, but do you remember when it was really popular for shows to have a podcast spin-off with the original cast? Where they like, a new story happens, it's like a story podcast, and the cast is acting their roles.
Cool. Actually, I don't think I've listened to a podcast like that, but that is very cool.
Okay, yeah, so they have one. I haven't listened to it, but it sounds interesting. And the whole franchise itself is called the Buffyverse.
Okay, I was literally just about to say, there is such a universe around this story, way more than I even realized. But it makes sense why it's so famous and everyone has heard of it, because there's so much media out there.
Yeah. I think most notably, there's the spin-off that we talked about earlier called Angel, which features David Boreanaz and a lot of the original cast, but I'm not going to give any spoilers. And season 4 of Buffy actually syncs up with Angel season 1. So if you watch both at the same time, it fills in some blanks for each show.
Cool.
Now I'm remembering actually why I quit watching Buffy back in college. It's because I got to season 4 and I was trying to watch them both at the same time. And I would watch like 4 episodes of Buffy and then 4 episodes of Angel. And there would just be like, I would not be into one of the shows. I would want to just like binge all of Angel or binge all of Buffy. But I felt so committed to following this pattern that I just ended up not finishing either show.
High expectations.
I know. I'm a perfectionist, so I wanted to do it the right way. There were also many undeveloped spin-offs, like one about Giles called Ripper, one about Faith, played by Eliza Dushku, who we talked about in our Bring It On episode, a movie about Spike, played by James Marsters, who I cannot wait for Megan to meet, and a spin-off called Slayer School with Willow.
Cool.
So I wish all of these happened. None of them did. Sad.
Sad. I like all of those ideas.
I love a spin-off versus a reboot, I have to say.
Agreed.
But speaking of a reboot, in 2018, they were working on a reboot with Joss Whedon as the executive producer. And there were a lot of concerns that they were doing a reboot versus just expanding the Buffyverse with new characters. I also feel like it was too soon for a reboot, like if the original still holds up. This is how I feel about Harry Potter too, honestly.
Oh, but aren't you excited for the show?
I mean, I'm gonna watch it, but like, I don't want a reboot. I want a Marauders spinoff or like something else.
That's fair, but hopefully that's what's coming. Like, I can totally see the appeal for all of these spin-offs, because when you just get invested in a universe like this, you just want more content, not necessarily the same content delivered differently, you know?
Okay, we've talked about this before, actually. I don't think on the podcast, but we've always wished that Harry Potter would do what Marvel would do and just have all of these different spin-offs. I feel the same way about Buffy if they actually followed through with the spin-offs, but maybe they want to be able to do that, and by introducing the characters fresh, they have the opportunity to pull them into new stories.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if that's what they're doing on the Harry Potter series too.
Yeah, that's my dream.
So we will see.
In January 2024, Dolly Parton, who I believe was a producer on the 1992 movie, said that they're still working on the reboot and revamping it. And I love how she said revamping. Very punny.
Uh-huh. Well, that's good. Okay. So it sounds like it's happening, hopefully. We'll just have to keep our eye out. And who's going to do it? Hopefully HBO.
That's always our dream.
It's always our request.
And that's it. Well, thank you guys so much for listening.
I hope you guys are enjoying October. This is like our favorite month of episodes to do, because it just feels so seasonal, and it's so fun to just like get in the mood for Halloween, watch the spooky things, watch the nostalgic Halloween things, and there's more coming. We're going to be doing this all month.
I'm thrilled. This is my favorite month ever.
Well, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye.